Okay. Yes, I'd like to speak about two men who came from Ireland to the colonies and had important parts, although not actually signers of the Declaration. We had a number of Irish individuals or Irish ancestry individuals who actually signed the Declaration, but I want to talk about a couple other fellows who had a big part in the revolutionary process. First is John Dunlap, and he was born in Ireland August 21st, 1746 in Strabane in County Tyrone. When he was 10 years old, he came to the colonies and went to work as an apprentice to his uncle, William Dunlap, who was a printer and bookseller in Philadelphia, eventually taking over the business from his uncle, so typical American story of immigrating over and doing business. During the Revolutionary War, Dunlap was an officer in the 1st Troop Philadelphia City Cavalry, which is one of the oldest military units in the United States that's still in active service, if not the oldest. With the 1st Troop, Dunlap saw action with George Washington at the battles of Trenton and Princeton. And on July 4th, 1776, when the Declaration was signed, John Hancock, the President of the Continental Congress, had John Dunlap print broadside copies of the new Declaration. These 200 broadsides were printed, and they were known as the Dunlap broadsides, and they were the first published versions of the Declaration. They were sent across the United States to various representatives, including to Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army, George Washington, and who directed that the Declaration be read to the troops on July 9th. Another of the broadsides was sent to England. Dunlap and his partner, David Claypool, also had the honor of printing the Constitution of the United States on September 19, 1787 for use by the Constitutional Convention, and later published it for the first time in the Pennsylvania Packet, which was the daily paper published by Dunlap and possibly one of the first papers that was published daily in the U.S. So that's John Dunlap. And I'll talk about one other fellow, Charles Thompson. So he was born in Ireland November 29, 1729 in Magara, County Derry, to Scots-Irish migrants, Mr. and Mrs. John Thompson. After the death of his wife in 1739, John Thompson migrated to the colonies with his son. John passed away, unfortunately, at sea, and his possessions were stolen, so the boys arrived on the shore at Newcastle, Delaware, penniless. Charles was taken care of by a blacksmith in Newcastle, and he was educated in London, Pennsylvania. So one of the stories that's not exactly a Revolutionary War story, but before that, that I really like about Charles Thompson is 60 years prior, during the French and Indian War between England and France and their respective Native American allies, Thompson was an opponent of the Pennsylvania Proprietary's policies towards the Native Americans. And he actually served as secretary and advisor to the Delaware tribe in the Treaty of Easton. And in 1759, he wrote an article called An Inquiry into the Causes of the Alienation of the Delaware and Shawanese Indians from the British Interest. And he blamed the war that was going on between the colonists and the proprietors on the actual Pennsylvania proprietors. So he stood up for the Delaware tribe, and they ended up adopting him into their tribe, calling him the man who speaks the truth, which is probably not a usual thing at the time. Charles Thompson is notable because he served as secretary for the entire duration of the Continental Congress. So that's the First Continental Congress, Second Continental Congress, and the Congress of the Confederation, which was eventually going to become the U.S. Congress. So the journals of the Continental Congress are all the records that were kept by Charles Thompson as secretary for those three bodies. He did not technically sign the Declaration, but as secretary of the Continental Congress, he is shown on the published broadsides of the Declaration because he attested the signature of John Hancock, who was president of the Congress. So the published ones that were sent around by John Dunlap included his signature on it. Charles Thompson was the one who was sent to George Washington's home in Virginia to inform him that he had been elected first president of the United States, and he accompanied Washington back to New York for his inauguration. You probably knew him very well from their war years. Charles Thompson also had a hand in designing the United States seal. So that's the one with the eagle, American eagle that we're familiar with, and the pyramid with the eye on the reverse side. So that's the United States seal, and is also what you see if you look on the back of a dollar bill. So that was Charles Thompson was involved in the design for that. So a couple Irishmen who contributed a lot to our current country.